Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 7, what Prahlad learned in the womb, text number 27. 7 seems like a very important number today. 7, 7, 27. But we won't get up to 7, 7, 77 because we might as well take advantage of 27. Etad dvaro hi samsaro guna karma nibandhana agyana malo paratopi pumsa swapna nivarpyate etadaro hi samsaro guna karma nibandhana agyana mulo partopi pumsa swapna ivarpyate. Saro agyanula paratopi pumsa swapna nivartpate etadvara samsaro nibandhana paratopi nivartate. Dami. Samsaro guna karmani bandhana agyana mula paratopi musabdharna nivartate. Do we have a first canto somewhere? If we do, it would be good. Etat, this, dwara, whose door, he, indeed, samsaraha, material existence, in which one suffers the threefold miseries. Guna karma nibandhanaha, captivation by the three modes of material nature. Agyana mulaha, whose root is ignorance. Apartaha, without factual meaning. Api, even. Pumsa, of the living entity. Swapna, a dream. Eva, like. Arpyate, is placed. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Through polluted intelligence, one is subjected to the modes of nature, and thus one is conditioned by material existence, like a dreaming state in which one falsely suffers material existence, which is due to ignorance, must be considered unwanted and temporary. Purport. The unwanted condition of temporary life is called ignorance. One can very easily understand that the material body is temporary, for it is generated at a certain date and ends at a certain date after undergoing the 6 kinds of changes. 6 kinds of change. Namely, birth, death, growth, maintenance, transformation, and dwindling. This condition of the eternal soul is due to his ignorance. And although it is temporary, it is unwanted, Because of ignorance, one is put into temporary bodies, one after another. The spirit soul, however, does not need to enter such temporary bodies. He does so only due to his ignorance or his forgetfulness of Krishna. Is on the board, so you're ready. Therefore, in the human form of life, when one's intelligence is developed, one should change his consciousness by trying to understand Krishna. Then one can be liberated. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 4:9, where the Lord says, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mam eti sarjana. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this mature world, but attains to my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Unless one understands Krishna and comes to Krishna consciousness, one must continue in material bondage. In this conditional life, one must surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indeed, that is demanded by the Supreme Lord. Sarva dharma prityaja mam ekam sharanam vraja. As advised by Maharaj Rishabdev, Nasaro manye yata atmano yam asanpi kleshada ashadeha. One must be intelligent enough to understand that although one's body is temporary and will not endure for long as one has a body, he must undergo the pangs of material existence. Therefore, by good association, by the instructions of a bona fide spiritual master, one takes the Krishna consciousness, his conditional life and material existence is vanquished, and his original consciousness, known as Krishna consciousness, is revived. When one is Krishna conscious, he can realize that material existence, whether one is awake or dreaming, is nothing but a dream and has no factual value. This realization is possible by the grace of the Supreme Lord. This grace is also present in the form of the instruction of Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is for everyone to engage in welfare activities to awaken the foolish living entity, especially in human society, so that he may come to the platform of Krishna consciousness and benefit by liberation from its conditional life. In this connection, Srila Madhvacharya cites the following verses. Dukkha rupo pi samsaro buddhi purvam avapyate yata swapne shiraschedam swayam kritvatmano vasaha tato dukkam avapyeta tata jagarito pitu janan ap yatmano dukkam avasyastu pravartate. One must realize that the material condition of life is full of distresses. One can realize this with purified intelligence. When one's intelligence is purified, he can understand the unwanted, temporary material life is just like a dream. Just as one suffers pain when his head is cut off in a dream, in ignorance one suffers not only while dreaming, but also while awake. Without the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one continues in ignorance and is thus subjected to material distresses in various ways. Etad dvaro isam saro guna karma nibandanaha agya mulo parto pi pumsa swapna ivarptite. Although through polluted intelligence one is subjected to the modes of nature, and thus one is conditioned by material existence. Like a dreaming state in which one falsely suffers material existence, which is due to ignorance, what must be considered unwanted and temporary. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatunde Ve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskadyade Siddharne. Prahlad Maharaj is trying to wake us up, which is a difficult task. He's trying to wake up his schoolmates also, but obviously he had to give them quite a number of instructions. Luckily, the teachers must have stayed away for a while. Maybe they went to sleep themselves. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given us so many instructions to his schoolmates. But basically, we can begin in Bhagavad Gita, as usual, and see what Krishna has to say about this. Now, we could begin at the first verse, but that would take a long time. We probably wouldn't have enough time to go through the whole thing. But let's start with Shreya Swadamo Viguna. This is the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Shreya Swadamo Viguna Paradharma Sunustitat Shreya Dharme Didinam Shreyak Paradharmo Bhayavaha. It is better to perform one's own prescribed duties, even imperfectly, than perform someone else's duty perfectly. Destruction in the cause of one's own duty is better because to take up someone else's duty is dangerous. Of course, people won't understand at all what this means in Kali Yuga because they think their only duty is to eat and sleep. And they don't want anyone else to take up that duty. They want to make sure they do it themselves. Make money so we can eat, sleep, mate, and defend. People think that's their duty. Money sweeter than honey. The professional soldier, the businessman, and the thief, they'll risk their very dear lives to get money. But actually, everyone has another duty, Yagya Vai Vishnu. And if we don't perform that duty, what happens? Does anyone know? Do you know? What happens if you don't do your duty in Krishna consciousness? No rain. Well, looks like everyone's doing their duty lately. No problem. Wow, it's such a dutiful society here. Plenty of rain. Well, what's the worst thing that can happen to us? Does anyone know? What's that? Yeah. That's pretty bad. But actually, that's not so bad. Because without that, we have no impetus to avoid the worst thing that would happen. No one knows maybe that's our problem. We don't know. Now, what's that? You don't sound very convinced. Say it with more conviction. A little bit more conviction. Forget Krishna. Are you getting there? Yes, that's right. That's very good. Forgetting Krishna is the worst thing that would happen to us, and everything else that's so-called bad happens to us after that. But it's actually not bad. All the miseries that we're going through are very good. Because unless we went through all these miseries, we wouldn't have any impetus to remember Krishna. And if we remember Krishna, then everything is auspicious. So the miseries that force us to remember Krishna are also equally auspicious. So Krishna says, Shreya Swadamo Viguna. Shreya, the best thing. Or what's Shreya, Prayas. Prayas is immediate. Shreyas is long-term. Shreya Swadamo, one's own duty. Everyone has duty. Everyone took birth. And they have a certain amount of energy and talents and wealth and whatever. And one's duty is to engage in Krishna's service. Doesn't matter if we're rich or poor or black or white, male or female. If one simply does his duty in Krishna consciousness, then what will be the result? Checking the sutra. If you do your duty as Krishna wants you to do, what will be the result in Krishna consciousness? Yes, we'll become more and more conscious of Krishna. Krishna will reveal himself to us. But people who don't want to do what they're supposed to do, they want to do what they're not supposed to do. That makes them feel independent and free to follow the modes of nature. So Arjuna is puzzled, why do people, they're supposed to do something, they know they're supposed to do it, but they don't do it. So why don't they do it? Why don't we do what we know we're supposed to do? Love. No. Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Arjuna asks, Ata keno priyuktoyo, papam purusha, papam chap, Arjuna Vacha, Anicham Vapi Varshneya Baladi Vinyojitaha. Arjuna Vacha, what's the word? What's that verse? Ata keno priyuktoyam papam chariti purusha, Anicham Vapi Varshneya Baladi Vinyojita. My dear Arjuna, by one is one forced to do activities as if by force, although he knows they're not supposed to be doing it. Yeah, he's right. That's true. So he's asking, I know I'm supposed to do what I'm supposed to do, but I don't do it. So what's the force? So Krishna doesn't say, oh, it's love. You're just, spontaneous. You're a spontaneous devotee. You're free. You're so, you're an artist. That's why. Just smoke a little bit more and you'll understand. So Krishna says, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Kama Esha, Krodha Esha, Rajaguna, Samudvamaha, Mahashano Mahapatma, Vidinam Iha Varina. It is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, which is the all-devouring, sinful enemy of this world. So Krishna doesn't see, well, lust, I'm so fortunate. Before I was bored, now I feel I'm in love, romance. No, Krishna says it's the greatest enemy of the world. It's all-devouring. And why? Why is Krishna so much against lust? I remember when I used to give classes, when we first got the Bhagavad Gita, the little blue Bhagavad Gita, and I would always give classes. And every class I'd mention lust. My temple president didn't like it at all. He said, well, why are you so much into lust? But why was Krishna telling us that it's our enemy and we should avoid it? Because dumena vriyate vanir yataradar shomalena cha yatovena vrita garbhas tatate name avritam. Just like fire is covered by smoke, or the mirror is covered by dust, or the embryo is covered by the womb, so the living entity is covered by different degrees of this lust. Because it's covering us. We don't see who we actually are. We don't see who anyone else is. We don't see what's going on here. And therefore, we're acting in ways which are not beneficial for ourselves. Have nothing to do with our real self. Have nothing to do with our real benefit, because our activities should produce bliss and love. And instead, they're producing anxiety and moroseness and suffering. Now, in the human form of life, we're also covered, just like fire is covered by smoke, but by carefully handling the fire, the smoke can be minimized and the actual fire can be made to blaze. So our consciousness can be made to blaze in the human form of life. But what's the problem? Avritam gena etena ganano nityavarena kamarupena kuntiya dusprena analena cha. Thus the man's pure consciousness is covered by his eternal enemy in form of love, which is never lust, which is never satisfied. In other words, it doesn't matter how much we ate yesterday, how much we slept. We don't think, oh, yesterday I slept so much, I don't have to sleep today. Maybe I won't go to sleep to the next week. Oh, yesterday it was a nice feast. Well, I think I could fast for a few weeks, no problem. I'm satisfied. And other things too. If you scratch the itch, then you just got to scratch it some more. It's never, and it burns like fire. The more we satisfy our lust, then it doesn't say, oh, very nice, I think we can relax for for some time because you satisfied me. No, it actually becomes stronger. It says, you rascal, look around. Everyone else is enjoying much more than you are. You don't love me. So we're impelled even more to gratify our senses. And then Krishna says, well, where is this? How do you conquer lust? Krishna's giving a bad name to lust, anger, greed. He's making it appear that these are bad things, although they're considered very healthy. One devotee once went to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, I'm still lusty. And Prabhupada said, well, that means you're healthy. If you have a material body, it's normal to be lusty. It's not that you're supposed to satisfy it necessarily. It could through regulations maybe. But if you're sick and whatever, then generally you can't eat, you can't sleep, you can't mate, you can't do anything. You can't defend either. So having a strong body sometimes is not bad, but it should be, one's material desire should be regulated. One should eat what's necessary, as much as necessary, sleep what's necessary. But if you eat too much, then you'll have to sleep too much, and then you'll have desires will go into mating and defending even more anxiety. So Krishna says, where is the enemy and how can we conquer it? Indriyani mano buddhir asyadishtanam uchate etera vimohadyesha jnanama vrityadehinam. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of lust, which veils the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders them. So now we know what the enemy is. It's my centers. So just cut your senses out. Ah, you rascal. Ah, oh, it hurts. It's all right. Blind. We're conquering the enemy. Cut tongue. Oh. Well, luckily there's a better way of conquering. It's not the recommended process. Bil Mangal Thakur, when he was coming to Vrindavan after visiting his girlfriend said to go to Vrindavan because if you have the same attraction for Krishna as you have for me, your life will become perfect. So he went there and found a very beautifully dressed, attractive lady on the way, and his eyes said, ooh, and he followed her to her husband. And her husband said, oh, you seem like a very nice Brahmin. What would you like? I'd like your wife. Go ahead. You're a cultured Brahmin, so I can't refuse you, whatever you ask for. And he realized that, wow, I made a mistake. I'm on my way to Vrindavan. My eyes have deviated me. So he said, the lady came and said, oh, yes, well, how can I serve you? She said, could I have your hairpins? He took her hairpins and went, whack. He said, these won't bother me anymore. That's one method. Now there's another method, luckily. But then he went to Vrindavan, lived there for 800 years. And he had Krishna 800 years, that's right. And he had Krishna personally come and visit him every day and bring him milk. And he used to sing to Krishna, and that songs are in the Krishna Karanamrita. Famous verses about Krishna. So he went blind externally, but internally he was in the spiritual world. So it didn't turn out so bad. In any case, for us, the senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of lust, which veils the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders them. So Prabhupada said we should know where the problem begins. The problem begins with hearing, believe it or not. According to what we hear, we get an attraction. That's why the whole present society is based upon advertisement. People are being controlled by hearing. As a matter of fact, all these web searches and things like that, if you use them, Google or whatever else, Google Guru, Facebook, I don't know. Twitter, I think, is you just make small messages. Is that what Twitter is? Twitter. What's Twitter? Just short messages or something? So, these things, what they're doing is why were they made? For our happiness and enjoyment? So we can be benefited and live peaceful and free? Well, someone may believe that, but I don't. What they were made for is to track your every breath. Find how many breaths you're making every minute. To figure out what you're actually interested in so they can sell you. At least for now, sell you what they want to sell you. They can find out what you want, and then they're being supported by advertisers who are going to bombard you with advertisement for exactly what you're interested in. So that way you'll become, more or less impelled to buy. Because you think I'll get no relief until I finally buy this thing. Then they're going to let me go. I'm dreaming at night. Oh, I got to wake up and buy it. I got to get out of this. And Facebook, Google, whatever, they're getting paid for all this. And they're becoming more and more powerful. They're tracking everyone. And then not only they sell products, for instance, they can sell you a product by showing the advertisement. They know exactly how old you are. They know what your favorite color is. They know what your favorite monkey is, and dog and cat. They know everything about you, where you go, what you look at. And then they can mold whatever they want to sell, like a candidate for an office, whoever they want elected, whoever pays them to get elected. They can just mold a certain persona. They can create a persona for this person in a particular area, like Slovenia. They know what people are thinking, and they can present their candidate in such a way as to attract the people in a certain area, like Slovenia. They know what people are, what kind of personalities they prefer, what kind of clothing they should be wearing, where they should be looking, and how they should smell, everything. Everything's there. So then they present it, and the people say, well, I don't know why, but this guy looks like, I know he's a fool, number one, and a rascal, but I'm attracted to him, so I got to vote for him. And we think we're free, the land of the free. We have a free choice. We have a free choice to vote for what they are going to tell us to vote for. So in that way, everyone is conditioned by hearing. And nowadays, the people in control, they know exactly what they want us to hear and smell and taste and see, so that they will do exactly what they want us to do. Not what we want to do, but what they want us to do. So hearing, and then when hearing is there, we become attracted to that glorification somehow or another. It fits our personality. And then as a result of becoming attracted to something in the material world, Maya provides lust. The mind becomes a reservoir of all material desires. And then the soul has to make a choice. Do I want to satisfy these desires, or do I want to do something different? But if I have nothing else to do, then it's a question of which desire I want to satisfy. One in goodness, one in passion, or one in ignorance. Goodness is generally not very prominent in the modern society. People are not advertising for goodness. There's no billboard, help old ladies across the street. Have you ever seen a signboard like that? Feed the poor, feed the pigeons. Not even they don't even want to feed the pigeons nowadays. Do you have pigeons here? No wonder they don't want to feed the pigeons. There are no pigeons. Feed the birds. No, they want to shoot the birds. So people are mostly being presented with desires and modes of ignorance and passion. You have a choice between being presented from someone who's in hell, glorifying hell, or someone who's going to hell and glorifying the path to hell. That's usually the choice in modern society. And then one feels desire. I have to get this thing. I have to identify with it. I have to feel part of it. And then in order to do anything, we need intelligence. So when the soul decides, I'm going to carry out this desire, thinking, feeling, and willing, I'm going to will it, then material nature provides us with a false ego, by which we're convinced that I am this body, I'm the doer, whatever else. And then lusty intelligence, in other words, once we get lusty intelligence, I'm going to do this, then material nature provides a false ego, by which we identify ourselves with the mind and senses, and then we perform activities for sense gratification. Now, the alternative, tasma tvam indriyanyado niyamya bharatarshabha papanam prajihiyenam jnana vijnanam nashanam. The other thing is we can regulate the senses, but that takes knowledge. Wait a second. This thing I'm going for is not what I really should get. There's like, I always give that example. A man's walking down the street and he sees an attractive woman and the mind says, go get her. And the intelligence says, wait a second. She has a man next to her and she has a dot on her forehead. She might even be married. And the mind says, oh, come on. Who believes that? Superstitions, That was in ancient times. Nowadays, the only rule is there are no rules. That's the only rule. If it feels good, then you go for it. So go for it. Go for it. And then the soul has to make a decision. Wait a second, I read something in some book. Someone gave me Bhagavad something, Bhagavad, so I can't remember. You're not supposed to do that. Oh, come on, the mind says. No one believes that anymore. You're the only one in the universe who thinks like that. Get with it. And then, all right, I'll get with it. What should I do? So then he inquires from the intelligence. Then he tells the intelligence, all right, make an arrangement to meet her. How can I meet her? So the intelligence says, write her a letter. Tell her in the letter that she's the most beautiful person you've ever seen. And then put, it's very small letter, in the last 2 weeks, to be honest. You have to have a little honesty, even in Kali Yuga. Tell her you're madly in love with her, you can't live without her. She should meet you in such and such place at such and such time. And you'll give her the sun and you'll give her the moon. And if she's really nice to you, then you'll throw in a couple extra stars too, just to make her happy. But don't sign the letter, because that man next to her is twice as big as you are. So that's one choice, using the intelligence to make arrangements for sense gratification. Or, if we're Krishna conscious, the person says, wait a second, I actually read the Bhagavad Gita, and this is very inauspicious. I'll get into a lot of trouble. That I should do so. I'm out here to sell books about Krishna. So let me go up to the couple and give them a Bhagavad Gita and a Krishna book and tell them they're the nicest couple you've seen, and just tell us in the last 2 weeks. Tell them that, this is a book. It goes with the Krishna book is the same color as your dress. And I'm sure it would go nicely with you. People complimentary. And this will develop your relationship, whatever you tell them. And then ask them for a donation. So that way the intelligence is used, but in Krishna's service. A relationship with that man and woman, but this is a spiritual relationship. Otherwise, the material relationship may turn out to be very unpleasant. So that's the difference between material life and spiritual life. Spiritual life will be very pleasant, and material life will be very unpleasant. Therefore, one should understand, Indriyani paranyahur, indriyebik paramanak, manasastu paro budir, yo bude paratastu saha. That the working senses is superior to dull matter, mind is higher than the senses, intelligence is higher than the mind, and he, the soul, is even higher. In other words, we have a choice. We can be on the sensual platform. We can be on the mental platform. We can float on the mental platform till we finally find the sense object we've been looking for that grabs our attention. We can't avoid it. Or we can be on the intellectual platform. I'm above all this. I'm God. I'm the Lord. I'm actually, nothing affects me in this world. Because I'm supreme. I affect everything, but nothing affects me. Or we can be on the spiritual platform. So we have to understand we're the soul, and we make the choice which platform we're going to be on. And what does Krishna recommend? Evam bude puram budva samstavyatmanam atmana jahi shatrum mahabaho kamarupam darashidam. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to material senses, mind, and intelligence, one should control the lower self by the higher. And thus, by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So we have a choice, but we take some spiritual strength. And that spiritual strength comes from hearing, just like material entanglement comes from hearing. So hearing our philosophy and applying it properly will give it spiritual strength so that we can actually become conscious of Krishna and conquer this insatiable form of our enemy called lust. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Wake up from our dreams. Everyone breathe. Okay, thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande.